Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 11 of this podcast. I am your host with the most, Uncle Louie. And to all of you loyal Louians, by the way, in case you haven't noticed, or you might not, or you might have heard in the background, there will be some melody that you are all familiar with, which is the Ice Cream Man, or at least one of the many main melodies that the Ice Cream Man uses. So please ignore that while this episode is going on. I just thought that would be nice for the raw effect of it. But either way, let us begin. So we are back at episode 11. Episode 11. Episode 11. And this episode is entitled Paranormal Phenomena Ghostly Encounters Part 2. So part one, you all might remember if you have listened upon it that it's not it's not very audible for the most part. It is fairly lackluster in the audio quality because of the intense amount of wind and interference in general. But with this one, it's a little bit different. At least now you will be able to hear the stories, the true tales from my life that I will bring upon to your magical, mysterious, curious ear. So, episode 11. Episode 11. Hard to believe we're getting there. We're getting past the 10 episode mark, and it's been a very interesting ride. But without further ado, let's get into it. So, when you think about ghosts or encounters, the paranormal, so to say, you think mainly of phantasms, specters. You know, you think of that. You think of ghosts, but one other, one of one something else that comes to mind for fewer of us than the majority is what, or at least the question of what is paranormal. Because most people have this definition that the paranormal is only with ghosts, and that is it. That the paranormal only has to do with ghosts, which is, it's fair to say, yes, it's accurate, but it's not the only thing that it has to do with. There's a lot of phenomena. That's why this episode is called Paranormal Phenomena, because these phenomena can be varied. There's a variety or a spectrum of these occurrences that happen that aren't just solely phantasmic based, if you get my meaning. Not solely phantasmic based. It has some phantasmic base sometimes, but not all the time. So that's what I classify paranormal as a general out of the ordinary, but that has to do with some sort of spiritual aspect or non-living aspect in a sense. Hence paranormal phenomena. So when when thinking about what can classify under paranormal phenomena, you kind of just look into it. You look into it, and like I mentioned earlier, people mostly think it's ghosts, specters, but they don't consider that sometimes even the demonic can be classified under the paranormal phenomenon category. You also have fairies, basically anything that's non ordinary, werewolves, Bigfoot, the vampires, etc. List goes on, but a lot of things can classify under paranormal phenomena. And one such case that classifies under paranormal phenomena is symbols. Symbols popping up out of nowhere, almost in a spiritual manner or a ghostly manner. And the reason why I say that is because that will lead right into the story that I have for you, the first story. So, this first story takes place at an old fort that's in an area. I can't be too specific, but for those of you that know me, you know which place I'm talking about. But yes, this takes place at an old fort that was used during the Civil War, etc. So there have been casualties there, and throughout the years since its inception, it's pretty much been a grave site for many bodies, many people of all ages, for many reasons. So it's kind of a hot spot for the paranormal, or for spirits to roam around and make their presence known. So with that little background in mind, there was this one particular night. It was during this festival that they were having at this fort. That they, this fort is known to hold specific festivals for certain schools. So it was a festival. It was just in a very small contained area, but I was there with some acquaintances and some friends. And as we're there, we kind of start. We're all pretty adventurous, so we all had that mentality that, hey, let's go check these places out, because that fort had a lot of buildings, and most of them, a good portion of them were abandoned and locked up and whatnot. So you didn't really have easy access to it, or any access, unless you found a particular way, or unless you were lucky enough to find an opening. Then you use that. And so all of us thought, with our adventurous spirits in mind and our curiosity, let's check out one of the abandoned buildings. So we did, and we start heading over. We start checking the place out, making sure that there's some spot that's not too open, that's not too, how do I say, that's not too, a place that's not too open, not too easily exposed. And so we go to this place. We go to one of these buildings that we find that's kind of out of the way. It's very dark, and has good spots to hide in case one of us is spotted, or a group of us. Just in case they had, because they had, I believe at the time, they had some security patrolling the place to make sure no one was entering the premises and vandalizing and whatnot. And so we were all kind of on our toes about that. So we managed to get into one place. There was already an opening, so we thought, okay, let's get in. So we go inside this building. We'll call it building Y. Building Y. So we go inside building Y, and in total, I believe there was about what, six of us, six, seven at most, but I believe it was six of us. So we all go in, and we're all just kind of exploring the place, checking it out, because we've heard the stories. And me myself, having had an experience years before that particular time, I already known that there were, excuse that, it's a very loud day. It's a very, very loud day today. My bad. But anyway, I've already, having already experienced the paranormal in this location many times before, and having a very grand experience in one of these buildings, I knew what to expect. I knew that you basically expect something dramatic, or something that's paranormal in all sense of the words. Paranormal, something out of the ordinary, something that you wouldn't necessarily be able to explain logically. And so, with that in mind, we're all exploring. I tell my friends, my group of friends there at the time with me, just be prepared for anything. Don't be scared. Let's try to stick together, and let's not, wander off on our own, and just as precautions. And so we're, searching one of the rooms, and it's complete lights are, electricity's cut off, so the lights are down, so it's really dark. We had to use our phone lights and some flashlights that we had. And so we're looking around, and all of a sudden the room starts getting cold, very, very cold. And it seems like there's a breeze coming in, except it was hard to explain why it was cold, considering there's no central air running through the building, and it's warm outside. It's not even windy. It's just very warm. It's very, very humid. but it was getting cold within the area where we were within that first room. And there were, as far as what was in that room, it was just a lot of junk. If anything, it was used for storage. There was a lot of old textbooks that weren't used anymore, papers, coloring books, broken desks, just a lot of school stuff that typically schools put in storage when they're not of use anymore, or when they just don't want to throw it away. But yeah, everything was pretty much gathering dust, and so like I was mentioning, it started getting cold, and at least the women in the group were kind of starting to feel a little bit more uneasy than the men, and for very good reason, because it. I mean, for them, that was pretty intense. For the guys, we were all like, "Let's go investigate. Let's go check it out. Let's go see why this is happening." And of course, you had some people that were like, "Well, it's probably just some air that's been in here." The logical people. So we go into the hall, and I tell you, I mean, the room was dark. There's no denying that it was dark. But that hall, boy, was that hall dark. I mean, there were lights outside. The nearest light was pretty far away. That was nearby that building Y, but it was dark. I mean, it was almost like there was this this darkness surrounding that whole hall specifically. That was a denser darkness. And so we start kind of looking down that hall. From one end of the hall, we're looking the direction of the other end, but we're like on one end, and the other end of the hall is the other end. So we're not near that other end. And as we're looking, we noticed, or at least if anything, I believe I was the one who brought it to people's attention, that I noticed that at the other end of the hall there was like a light, almost aqua blue light emanating from the ground up. And it was bizarre, genuinely bizarre, because at first I thought maybe it's just my eyes playing tricks, maybe it's a light outside, or I was trying to explain it rationally, because even though I'm a firm believer in the paranormal, I always try to look for a rational explanation. You know, if there is one, I try to look for it first. That way, I don't jump to conclusions, and I don't give false, uh, false information as to, or false accounts of paranormal activity, because nothing worse than thinking everything is paranormal without trying to find a logical explanation. So at first, logically, my brain was, okay, there's light coming from there. Either someone has a flashlight somewhere, or it's being reflected from outside, from one of the street lights. I mean, it could be anything. And I just started thinking, and the more I thought about it, the more I came to realize that there was no other outside sources. There were no outside sources. I was basically looking at a light that was emanating from nothing, literally from nothing. Like I said, the hallway had a dense darkness, and there was no light outside that was even that color to begin with. But there was no light that was close enough to make a noticeable entrance within that hall. Because that hall, half of it was just the side where there were all the classrooms and the stairwell and all that. And the other half was nothing but windows leading to showing the outdoors. And even like that, there was no lights around, and the nearest one was very far off, so it wasn't close enough to make any kind of impact or difference, or even to enter that building or that particular hall. And so I told my group of people, my friends at the time, you know, look down there, tell me what you see. And so they look, and they start saying, "Is that a blue light? It looks like a blue, some kind of blue light is coming from the ground." And when I take a look at it a little bit closer, I notice that there's symbols starting to take form. Like, not only is there an aqua blue light coming from emanating from the ground, but it's emanating in the form of a symbol. And it was a circle, like a big circle, and then it had a line, and it connected to like a smaller circle, and it had internal circles within those circles. It was very a lot of symbolism there, a lot of symbols, and it was. I'll admit, for me, it was one of the coolest things that I had seen because I'd never seen that before, and logically I could not explain it. Rationally, I could not explain it. I looked for, mentally I thought about anything that it logically that it could be, and I couldn't. Nothing matched, and I thought, well, if I can't find a solution from what I know, and I know a lot, but from what if I can't find a logical solution from what I know, then I'll chalk it up to a legitimate paranormal experience. Especially, I mean, if you think about it, symbols, they're glowing from the ground or from the floor, and the light's coming from nowhere, and the symbols are like these circles and triangles and squares and lines connecting each other and forming these weird so-called overall grand symbols or grand pictures. You just can't explain that, especially if it just came out of nowhere. I mean, this is an old building. No one's been in there for years, and there certainly is no advanced technology in there to make those kind of images just emanate from the ground. So, you know, I chalked it up to a legitimate paranormal experience, and the group of friends that I was with, that were with me at the time, they were finding it hard to believe themselves. Some of them still don't believe that what they saw was legitimately paranormal. They try to explain it or try to convince themselves that it was just light from the outdoors, or someone with a flashlight that we maybe didn't see, or maybe it was just their minds playing tricks on them. They're trying to deny it. I, on the other hand, am proud to say that it was a legitimate paranormal experience, and it was interesting because that was probably one of the only moments so far in my life that I've seen actual symbols emanate light. And the fact that there were any actual symbols there was kind of a first as well, because I've had a good amount of paranormal experiences, and most of them have been mostly like ghosts in a sense, or silhouettes or figures, something solid. But I've never really come across a lot of symbols as an experience. And so coming across basically the symbolism itself was pretty interesting, and it was something new. It was definitely something new and something to really take note of. That's why, I still remember it very as vividly as if it would have happened to me yesterday, very well. So that was one experience, and I will say this just to kind of finish off that story. We did end up going towards the end of the hall where we saw those symbols, lighting up in the aqua blue color and everything, and there was nothing there. I mean, when we got there, it already dissipated, but once it dissipated, we went towards that area where we saw it, and there was nothing there. It was just normal floor. There wasn't any specific drawings of anything or an outline or nothing. It was just regular floor, regular tile floor, and that's it. So, to this day, there was really no explanation for it other than it being a legitimate paranormal experience. So that's one story. That's one story down, and it was more impactful in the sense that it's a mystery. It's a mystery. Like it's a mystery in a sense of what what made it happen. How did it happen? Why was it glowing like an aqua blue? Why was it glowing aqua blue? What does that mean? What did those symbols mean? I mean, let's be honest here. Um, for all we know, for all I know, those could have been some sort of satanic symbol. And I just say that because Satanism is often the closest, uh, I guess you could say, practice or belief that's associated with the dead or the paranormal or the undead spirits. You know, spirits, ghosts themselves. Satanism is always the closest belief related to it. And so I kind of just put it out there. You know, it could be something completely different, but personally, at least one of my theories on this conclusion is it could have easily have been a satanic symbol of a ritual that was done many years ago. But again, I'm not sure. I didn't get a bad vibe from it, so that's a very extremely unlikely possibility. But who knows? You know, it's a mystery. It's everything shrouded in mystery. That's the thing with paranormal phenomena. You just don't know. You just don't know. You could try to, you could spend years trying to explain it and to, verify it to yourself, convince yourself that it's one thing. But unless you are, I guess you could say, unless you're like a spirit, there is no, there is no explanation. You just will never know. At least not while alive. You will never know. And so, bringing off of that, here, here's another interesting, and I mean interesting little tale, true tale for you of something that happened many years ago for me. Um, definitely more than five. Definitely more than five. But it wasn't so much terrifying as it was surprising. And so here's the basic premise of the situation during that time. It was late at night. I was asleep. I woke up because I was thirsty, so I went to the kitchen to get something to drink, to get some milk to drink or water, whatever it was that I was gonna get at the time. Just something to quench my thirst. So here we go. So I'm there, lying asleep, and I wake up because I had this strong thirst. I was thirsty basically. So I walked to the kitchen, and it was dark. Everybody was asleep. There was no noise. There wasn't a light on either, so I kind of had to be careful where I was walking. But basically, I was thirsty, so I went to the kitchen, nice and quiet as I could be. And I mean, I was still half asleep for at least half of the walk there. Then I fully woke up. I mean, if I didn't wake up during halfway of that, walking to the kitchen, to the refrigerator, I should say, when I opened the refrigerator, that light sure woke me up completely. But not only that, so I saw something when I opened that refrigerator. Because when you open that refrigerator dead of the night and you're not used to that strong light and it just turns on, ooh, it burns the eyes. But for me, I had already had the burning eyes sensation out of the way, and so at that, from then, I was like, I was gonna reach down and get get the gallon of milk to pour myself a glass of milk. But as I'm looking down, because from my kitchen you have a direct view into the living room, and the living room has some couches. And as I was kind of starting to go down and lean into getting the gallon of milk, I just looked to my right, towards the way of the living room, because one of the couches is just straight on, looks towards the side of the refrigerator door. And as I'm there on the side of opening, looking from the side of the open refrigerator door, I see this silhouette of what appears to be a masculine looking figure just sitting there with his legs kind of crossed, as men would have their legs crossed, a masculine type of leg crossing way. And it was just staring at me. I mean, I could feel it staring. I'll say he because it looked masculine, but it was staring at me. The shadow, I should say. This It was just very black. It was just a silhouette. It was dark, but the darkness was so much denser and so much hard, like a hard black. It was just so much denser than the other. the darkness within the room itself. And so I look and I kind of get a little bit spooked, but I don't panic. I just say to myself, well, maybe the light flashed my eyes a little bit too much, and I'm just seeing, the little light ingrained in my eyes for a little while, and it'll probably go away or pass over. So I just get my milk, pour it in, leave the refrigerator door open so I can, see where I'm pouring. And as I put the milk away and look back at that couch, that silhouette is still there. And I could feel it, internally. I could feel it just staring at me, almost like it's watching me. It's watching, curious, almost as if I'm a show, almost as if I'm the entertainment for him or for it, I should say. And I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that silhouette, that figure, that dark shadow, solid dark shadow figure was still there, I just grabbed my milk, my glass of milk, and just walked quickly towards my room. And ever since then, I don't I have at least I haven't seen that particular shadow or silhouette anymore. But it was kind of interesting in a sense that there wasn't exactly, or how do I say it? I've never known my house to be haunted. Of course, now I have different beliefs, but at that age, a much younger age, that I was in, many years ago, I didn't I didn't really have the same beliefs or the same concepts or theories or thoughts that I have now. Because at this point now, and I will say this, just to kind of give you a little bit of insight and to kind of let you in on the difference between what I think now and what I thought back then. Now I'm a firm believer that every single place in this world is haunted. There's not a place like you can't tell me there isn't a place that's haunted by something, whether it be ghosts, wandering ghosts, human ghost spirits, or demons, or angels, whatever. There's always going to be some type of paranormal phenomena happening, and that is a very loose interpretation of the word haunting. But yes, every place is haunted, either by gnomes or little or fairies or um, these mythical creatures that we just hear through legend. Like they occupy this world. They had to have had come from somewhere, and for them to have lasted this long, for those stories to have lasted this long and persevered, there must be some kind of truth to them. I don't know. That's my belief now. But back then, when I saw the silhouette, I thought there's only specific places that are haunted, but while everywhere else is fine. You know, and you know, like I said, over the years and over many years of experience with confronting the paranormal through different mediums and uh, different situations, I've come to that conclusion that every single place in this world, in this earth, is haunted. There's not a single place that isn't. There's always going to be a ghost in in some place. There's always a dead person, no matter where you are. There's always going to be a dead person or a dead body there. You just won't know about it because not all deaths are public, or not all deaths are publicly recorded. Especially if it was many many years ago, like hundreds. I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds, or even thousands of years ago. You know, you have corpses under your house and you don't even know it, but they're so deep down that you would never really be able to find them unless you dedicated a couple of years of digging into it. But regardless, it's just interesting how that particular silhouette was there at the house, even though I never called upon it, but it just showed up there and it was just watching. It was just watching, like as if it was the silhouette's own home. And it makes you wonder, at least for me, it makes me think, was that one of the previous owners that I don't know about? Because I don't know the history of my house whatsoever. So, for all I know, it could have been the previous owner, or two or even three owners down, back in time, that it could have been one of them and they died on the property, and now their ghost kind of just lingers around, but doesn't bother anyone because nothing like serious happens here. And so, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions here. I had certainly had a lot of questions, but I was not so much concerned with finding the right answer, but more in finding the answer for how do I get in contact with them? How do I get them to talk to me? You know, like I said, there's, me back then versus me now. There's such a huge difference because at least, if anything, when you're young, at least when you're a young teenager, you have all these things that you're learning about and that you really fall into and get into. I should say, like especially when you start really delving into the occult, the paranormal, the spiritual side of subjects, of categories. If you find it, and if you take it up, because the occult and all those subjects, they find people, of course, but that doesn't mean that everybody that they find is gonna kind of accept it or delve into it. And I don't mean delve into it as in just like become a full-on member of like a cult or something. No, no. I mean delve into it as in really learn about it. What is it? Where did it come from? Why do they do this? Why do they do that? And I was one of those few that actually delve into it. I learned about the occult. I learned about, um, you know, magic. And I use magic quotations, magic, all these rituals that you can do for this or that, and etc. Like a lot of the occult, and especially but I was more into the paranormal, the spirits, the demons, the angels, the all of that, like specifically that, because that just, to me, that was so, it felt right, it felt so attractive. And I will say this, I will talk more about the occult, or my journey with the occult and spirits and spirituality in a sense, on another episode, because I think that would be interesting. I mean, if you guys really wanna hear that, give me a like. Give me a like and put down in the comments yes. Just put yes on the comments for this video, for this podcast episode 11. But yeah, it's just more content. It's more content for all of you. And I hope that you all are still, following along with the episodes. Sorry I couldn't, I wasn't able to upload an episode this past Thursday, but I thought it'd be nice to have just a little bit of a change, just a little, just for the this past week. But for sure, the episodes are gonna keep coming, and there's going to be more content on the way. And also, as I've always mentioned, if you have a suggestion for something that you'd want to hear, or that you're interested in having as a topic for me to talk about, then leave it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to it, and try to make it into an episode. And if I do decide to pick your topic, I'll give you a shout out in the beginning of that episode, just to give you props for suggesting it. But as always, we're coming towards the end of this session, or this episode, and you know what that means. All you loyal Uncle Louians, you loyal Louians, y'all know that what's coming. The challenge question. So the challenge question for podcast episode, Uncle Louie's podcast episode 11, Paranormal Phenomenon, Ghostly Encounters, Part 2. Challenge question for this episode is, what what is something that you've experienced that's paranormal that you just could not find a rational explanation, no matter how hard you looked and how hard you tried to to put pieces together, you could not find a rational explanation, you know? Give me one of those stories, and I'll repeat it one more time just in case. I'll reiterate for those of you that maybe didn't hear it so clearly the first time. But what was what was a situation in your or an experience in your life, paranormal wise? I have to specify that it has to be paranormal, you know. But what paranormal situation in your life have you experienced where some paranormal phenomena had happened and you just could not explain it rationally? You could not find any kind of logic to it. You could not explain it in any sense of the word. You just had to either come to no conclusion or come to the conclusion that it was a legitimate paranormal experience. You know, on the comments down below, give me your story. It could be a one sentence. It could be a whole book if you want. Just give me your story, and I'll do my best to read them all because I'm interested. I'm interested. I mean, I've had that with the story I mentioned of the symbol that was emanating light with all these weird circles and squares and triangles and lines. And for me, that was something I just couldn't explain rationally, no matter how I looked at it. So, tell me your experience. And as always, this is Uncle Louie saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And hopefully you all have a good one. And I'll catch you on the next episode.